In about 10 minutes, I want to explain to you why VYFI is probably one of the best dexes on Cardano. Definitely an underrated dex, and it has 3 updates coming out that are going to be big catalysts for what VYFI is doing in the future. Okay, I want to break those down into how they're going to affect the chart long term and what I, as an investor slash trader, would be looking at on this VYFI chart in order to make a position that can make you quite a bit of return, and why it could possibly come at a time that's counter to a lot of Cardano native tokens. So we have stuff like SNEC, Bodega, IAG that are running. Eventually, those are going to top out. And then projects you're going to want to look at is stuff like VyFi if this setup occurs. Okay, but first, let me talk to you about what updates they have going on, because those are going to be catalysts that lead VyFi into a very good bull market if this whole crypto altcoin season really comes true, following the M2, following the global money cycle and the crypto cycle, like I still expect it to be. Also, if you're watching this channel for the first time, in the description, Crypto 100x Blueprint. I post a newsletter every week. You also get 7 steps to 100x your portfolio in crypto this cycle. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. I'd love to have you in the newsletter so we can talk. We can send emails back and forth, do all that good stuff. Okay. There's 3 things VyFi's got going on right now. And these 3 things I think really make it a standout DEX, because DEXs are very easy to become complacent with. In Cardano, we have MinSwap. It does 90% of the transactions on Cardano. And then kind of the other 10% are all fighting between a couple DEXs that, in my opinion, some have gotten a little bit sloppy or have just kind of stopped building or have kind of stopped iterating and marketing in the way that they should be if they want to be as competitive, right? So I think MinSwap is an absolutely fantastic DEX. I think Dex Hunter is an absolutely fantastic DEX aggregator. Then it comes down to, well, what are the other DEXs that can move if we start to see projects like MinSwap moving upwards, okay? When you have a category start to move, like if you have one leading DEX start to move, then you can kind of look at the other DEXs and say, okay, are these going to move as well? And that's where I would start to look at things like VyFi. Now, MinSwap is obviously the leader, but behind that, I think we struggle to have a classic number 2 DEX. And some people say it's MuesliSwap, some people say it's VyFi, some people say it might be Splash. If you come on a DeFi llama and you go purely by TVL, you can see that DEXs, MinSwap is the highest TVL. And then after that, we have Splash, and then we have MuesliSwap. Those would be the top 3 DEXs on Cardano. And then after that, we have the kind of the older DEXs, SundaySwap, Wing Riders, VyFi DEX. And if you ask me, in my personal opinion, I think VyFi is very rapidly going to move above Wing Riders and Sunday and start to get closer to MuesliSwap, maybe even up here to Splash Protocol as far as TVL, or it should, based on the unique things it's offering. I'm not seeing a lot of development or changes in the protocols between these other DEXs. VyFinance, we're seeing a lot of different things. Okay, so the first thing that we're seeing is SafeSwaps. SafeSwaps are pretty interesting because it's basically allowing anybody to do an OTC, over-the-counter transfer, whether you have a lot of ADA, whether you have a lot of VyFi, whether you have a little bit of ADA, a little bit of VyFi. They're also allowing for projects to distribute ADA in a way that's very cost-effective. So part of having a robust ecosystem like Cardano is that we want to be able to let people use it in the same way that they use credit cards, the same way that they use Visa, the same way that they use banking in the modern world, where it is fast, it is easy, it is fee light, right? A thing people have always talked about on Cardano is, well, the fees are up there. And we can even see that being the case because MinSwap has actually kind of removed all of their fees, at least a lot of their trading fees. So the idea is we make it more cost effective, we remove some barriers, we allow people to do more transactions, and in the long run, those transactions come back to the DEXs as revenue, right? And so this first thing VyFi is going for, which I think is pretty awesome. I would love to be a whale with like 10 million ADA so I can do OTC swaps between other whales, but that is not currently a feature in Cardano. Nobody's built it. VyFinance is the one who is building it and has built it, and they're allowing transfers between 2 parties. This is basically allowing for peer-to-peer transactions, no matter how big of an ADA stack you have. I think that's absolutely massive, and it's also going to allow large-scale distributions between projects at a very, very cost-effective, basically just like paying the transaction or paying whatever the initiator of the distributor decides that they want to be paid. Now, after that, they also have a burn going on. And if you're a VyFi holder, I especially urge you to get into the Discord because you have a say on this burn. I don't hold any VyFi at this time to be in a governance position, but I love being in governance on LenFi, right? And so you, if you're a VyFi holder, if you want to shape the trajectory of this DEX, you have the ability to vote what they're going to do with their tokens. They have 3 things going on right now. instantly burn the uncirculated supply, set a burn over time, or match the farm over 20 years. So some people, this is when you kind of got to be a very good investor, and you have to be able to say your opinion without fear. Because some people are going to say, hey, let's just instantly burn X amount of the uncirculating supply. Some people are going to say, let's match it to the farm. Let's distribute it to the people who have been here. This is when you, as a VYFI holder, really have to get in there and make an opinion that you can live with and you think is best for not only yourself but for everyone. And so, they're having a vote onto how much of the uncirculating supply is going to be burnt. And this is actually going to be massive for us traders and investors, because it's going to have a good effect on price. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, as more circulating supply is out into the public, and the market can find the true price of VYFI. That's going to lead us into when we get into the chart in just a second. The last thing VYFI has going on is that it has a liquidity manager, which I think is just absolutely massive. If you're familiar with the VYFI platform, they have really unique lending features, such as the bar, where you can stake VYFI. You can earn right now 13% on your VYFI, and you basically get a partial share ownership of every single liquidity pool or every single place that the platform earns revenue. That's very genius. It's very awesome. I think big dexes like MinSwap and Splash should have incentives like this. But the fact that we're getting on VYFI is why I think VYFI is going to continue to be a leader, a top 3 or 4 dex in the Cardano ecosystem. Okay, so adding on to technology like this, we're getting stuff like the liquidity manager, where you can structure a portfolio and say, hey, I want this type of risk across these couple pools. And then the liquidity manager is going to automatically update that risk tolerance for you and keep you within a structure that you want to be. You can kind of think of it as paying a portfolio manager to manage your investments for you. That's what the liquidity manager does, but it does it across multiple liquidity pools on the VYFI platform. This is going to be launched, I guess they said that they target soon after the version 3 DEX. Target currently being end of Q1 or early Q2. As of today, we're in Q2, so it's going to have to be Q2 sometime. But this is something I would definitely look out for, because it seems like a very easy way to manage risk in liquidity providing and also get good returns, because a lot of people have struggles with like impermanent loss, or they don't realize how much risk they're taking. So I think that's a very good feature, because you can say, I want 50% in a native pool, I want 10% at a Dedi pool, 10% in a VYFI pool, 10% in a SNEC pool, and kind of manage your risk accordingly for whatever you're trying to accomplish. Now let's get to the super sexy trading part. What does this mean? What does this mean for price? Well, the first thing that I think that this means is that you can look over here at the circulating supply and the total supply. This is about a 25 or 20%. 40 is almost 20% of 245 million, I think, if I'm doing my mental math correctly, right? 5 times 5 is 25. So this is about 20% of the total circulating supply. What they're suggesting in their burn is that we're going to burn 30 to 50% of this gap, and therefore get the circulating supply very, very, or much closer to a fully circulating supply, somewhere around 50 to 75% total circulating supply released out to the public. That could put VYFI in a more advantageous spot to have active price appreciation, especially over the rest of the crypto cycle, if it continues to go how we expect, based on the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, based on the M2 money supply, based on a bunch of other factors, right? And so what I would be looking for if I was a trader and an investor, which I am, always looking for opportunities. I'm always looking for opportunities. What I think you should be looking at is that you need VYFI to start to replicate this move right here. And the cool thing about this is this happened in mid-2023 when a lot of other things were pumping, meaning that when VYFI was going up, a lot of the rest of the Cardano native assets were going up, which means that when the leaders of the Cardano native assets like SNEC and IAG, maybe WMT, whatever you think the leaders are, start to move, stuff like VYFI is going to be pulled up with it, and it will get to an advantageous spot to buy. The advantageous spot to buy that I would be looking for if I were going to buy VYFI myself is you want this price to cross above these two moving averages. Now, what are these moving averages? The green one is a 30-week moving average, and the red one is a 40-week moving average. This is called stage analysis. And what we have here is we have a stage 4, stage 1 base, stage 2 rise, very rapid stage 3 distribution, and then this is considered in the stage 3 as well. And then once it crosses over, this is considered stage 4 again. What I think could be happening is VYFI is slowly starting to taper to the side, And as these moving averages get more horizontal, you can find an opportunity to buy VyFi at an advantageous spot to where it could possibly get up here and go about maybe 1,000%, maybe 1,000%. That'd be like a 10x. And so I think that's a very, very interesting risk reward ratio if we start to see VyFi get above these key points. And you can see this occurring across a lot of Cardano native tokens. It's most important when the chart is this big, when you have this many data points, do it on the weekly chart. If you do it on a daily chart, you run the risk of getting kind of a false breakout. Look at this. Look at that. I mean, you could buy in here and then you'll get stopped out. You can buy in here and you'll get stopped out. The thing about the weekly chart is it really gives you a fundamental indicator of where price is going, even if you lose out on a first few couple percentage points down here. So if you want to take advantage of the VyFi price move that I think will happen, something like this, eventually in the bull market, I think it will happen. If you want to take advantage of that is probably going to come because of all the updates they're doing, because of the token burn, because of, just the changing tides of altcoin season will eventually come. If you want to take advantage of that, what I would be looking for is for this setup to occur. You see, VyFi moves above the moving averages, but it doesn't just move above it. It moves above it on high volume. If we zoom in here, you can see how this volume here on this candle, you can look up here in the corner at volume, this candle is about 392,000 VyFi. I think that, I don't know if that volume number is in VyFi or if it's in ADA, but it doesn't matter because it's the same across every single candle. So you have 392,000. Well, the next one is 1.26 million. That's about, a 3x increase or a 2.5x increase in volume from week over week. That's a very, very big move. And before this, we had 339, and before that we had 189, and before that we had 137. So you can see how these two candles are pretty close. These are pretty close, but then the next one jumped up quite a bit, and then after that we were in the million type of volume range. So the biggest thing that you can look for here is if VyFi starts to go horizontally, the moving averages start to go horizontally, and price starts to have rising volume that breaks it above the moving average, then what could happen is price could settle and sit on the moving average before breaking up on high volume again, or it can be just like this, where it just keeps going up on a high volume. The thing that I would look for if you want to take a good position in VyFi, give it some time to breathe, be patient, let it get to the moving averages, let it break above, and on the breakout, buy the VyFi for the 10x move. That's what I'd be watching. That's what I personally am watching. I'm just waiting for the right time to do it. I think that VyFi is a very interesting project, doing a lot of very good things. And the thing I love is that they have a very good team. I like the CEO has a very strong financial background, which to me is very, very impressive and very important when you're dealing with financial stuff like this. So that's what's going on with VyFi. A lot of big updates, a lot of good things. I still think it's a very underrated DEX. And if you like underrated DEXs, this could be the thing for you. Watch this moving average. Price starts breaking above it. I will consider taking a position in it. And I definitely think that you could watch that too and possibly make the 10x trade on this little small DEX that I think is doing pretty well.